you're having messy conversations, which I love because life is indeed messy. So I want to talk to you a little bit about how you started to have with the idea to have a conversation, have a podcast together that was messy, because most people are afraid of messy. Christina?
Yeah, I was going to say, so it kind of, the origin of it actually was, I was having one of my infusions. I get an infusion for my MS every 6 months. And my dear friend, Jenna Fisher, who has a podcast called Office Ladies, she just came to keep me company and bring me some lunch. And I was like, I'm not going to work probably, at all. Or if I do here and there, she goes, you need to just do a podcast. Like, you need to do a podcast. She's like, you're so weird and all this stuff. And I was like, I don't know. Isn't that like a thing? And hearing myself talk and blah, blah, blah. So cut 2 months later, Jamie and I would get on the phone. We were hooked up together by our mutual friend, Lance Bass, who's a dear, dear, dear friend of ours. And he's like, you guys have to talk. So we would get on the phone and we would talk for hours, and we would laugh and we would cry and we'd laugh again. And we wouldn't just talk about MS. We talk about everything underneath the sun. And it was like, we'd feel better after these phone conversations. So I said, should we make this a thing? Like us, just a subject, like whatever subject with no structure, and, and just talk and record it and see what happens. And that's really where Messy was born.
So I didn't want
Messy with the big S.
Messy with a big M with a big M. So yeah. I didn't want to start by talking just about your MS, and that's because your acting actually initially connected you, and then your respective disease brought you to a new level. But I often find, and correct me if I'm wrong, that people, once they have a diagnosis and they share it, people start talking to them only about their diagnosis, and that how they kind of show up in the world seems to change. Did that happen for you? Which is why I didn't want to start by talking about your shared MS, because you're both mothers, you're both accomplished actresses, you're friends, and kind of that's the basis of this conversation series. And yet there is this kind of shared diagnosis at the heart of it.
Well, I think that when I hid my MS for 16 years, for the fear of that, for the fear of people labeling me, just always seeing MS when they looked at me, limiting me without me even explaining how the disease has manifested for me, and always wanting to talk about it. And so, when I finally did come public about it, I didn't even realize how curated I was with how I spoke about it. I think that I was afraid to really ever be very vulnerable and honest about my experience, even though it was such a big deal for me to even talk about it in general. Because when I started having the conversations with Christina and we started putting Messy out, it was the most liberated I had ever felt, that I could share these like deep parts of me that I thought nobody would ever accept or love or connect with. And to feel the connection and community from that, I think is the biggest lesson and gift that I've been able to experience. And now I can't stop talking about it. I want to be honest about my specific journey, because there's somebody else there that's feeling that way, that also feels alone. And because I felt for so long, nobody will ever understand this, even my own girlfriends who are like sisters to me. I didn't divulge the intimate details of what I was going through because I never thought anybody could connect with that. And once I had Christina and realized that, it opened me up. The floodgates are open. I can't shut up, and I don't want to, because the grace that I'm able to give myself now by sort of talking about these parts of myself that I hid for so long has bled over into all the areas of my life.
So how have people treated you differently once you made your diagnosis public?
I think that there is a bit of an awkwardness. I think people want to help. They don't know how to help. They want to say something. They don't want to say something. So I've really found my voice and been able to express myself, express my boundaries. Christina and I talk about that all the time. Express my needs, the way I need help, the way I can also say, no, I got it. Thank you. You know, I think having that ownership over my own experience has allowed me to be not as much of a victim to it and ask for help when I need it and then deny the help when I really want to try it on my own. And even in with my own girlfriends, you know, we've had to have a difficult conversation once where, you know, they've said to me, Jamie, we don't know how to help you. We
Yeah.
want to help you, but we don't know how. And I've been able to find the voice, like I said, to be able to express that.
So Christina, when you hear Jamie talk about that she hid her diagnosis for so long and that actually finding you uh, to talk to about this shared disease, this shared diagnosis, that everything changed, how does that make you feel? And was your experience similar?
I mean, so, a bit different because I was diagnosed while I was in the middle of shooting Dead to Me. And what had happened was some, person got a picture of me in my wheelchair. Now, I don't use a wheelchair all the time, but it was long walks from the vans to the set. And there was just at that point, no way that I could do it without being pushed. I mean, I probably could have, but hey, that takes up a lot of time. So I was saving production a lot of time by someone pushing me really fast. And it was my friend Mitch, and he pushed me really fast all the time. So it was a little different. I had to kind of just come out. I didn't have time to grieve privately and all of that. It was just became, that was it. That was the headlines now. And now, okay, now I'm that person. Now I'm the girl that you've watched for 40 years. Like now has this thing and looks different and walks different and all the things. And so I had to kind of get ahead of it so that people weren't trying to follow me around to see if I was walking okay, if I had a cane and if I stumbled. And so I had to come out, but and I felt really alone. I felt so alone because I'd been dealing with the symptoms of it for a few months and not knowing what it was like. And it started out as a little tingle in the toes, which I always tell people, like, oh, don't be a hypochondriac. I'm like, be a hypochondriac. Like, honestly, be your own advocate. If something is weird, you're not stupid by asking, hey, maybe check this out.